This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. Get a whole month free at Mubi.com/Karsten. Hey everyone, and maybe Charlie XCX, I can't really tell anymore. Welcome to another episode of What I Watched This Month, June edition. I started this month with Amadeus. This was one of those classics I had just never seen and was honestly beating around the bush to get around to. And shame on me, because this was an undeniable banger right off the bat. For one, there's the scale of it, the amount of production and costume design on display that you're just not gonna see done this tastefully or excessively ever again. Just gorgeous. There's F. Murray Abraham's spellbinding performance as Salieri that carries the entire movie. So much inviting candlelight cinematography. Like any great epic, it's a film that gracefully carries you through its runtime. You don't get the sense that you've just spent nearly 3 hours watching something. You don't even realize how much time is spent on the actual opera scenes until they're over. It is impossible not to be swept up by the spectacle of this. Then I rewatched The French Dispatch. As I've had to say so many times, this is one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies for how unapologetically Wes it is. I go a bit more in depth on this and the next two movies in my standalone video all about his work, but as is the case with every Wes Anderson movie, there's a lot of sadness underneath everything he's ever made, including this one. Deserves a closer look. And I rewatched Asteroid City. While this still gets held back by being overly convoluted at times, I actually was more moved on this rewatch than I ever was in past viewings. Something about the black and white sections with Ed Norton really hit. That's where the meat of this story is, and I honestly wish we got more of that in the end. But still though, what a uniquely existential watch. And then I rewatched The Phoenician Scheme. As expected, ended up coming around to this. Still a bit underwhelming next to his recent output from the last few years, but there is something really charming and refreshing about a stripped back Wes Anderson movie these days. Even stripped back, he manages to get pretty existential with it. You should watch my video. Then I watched Pather Panchali. Like Amadeus, another big boy masterpiece I've been waiting to get around to. And man, I feel like a fool. I always assumed based on the stoic poster that this would be a pretty dry art house classic, like something in line with Ozu, when really, this movie is full of energy and life. Satyajit Ray, at least here, is incredibly playful about capturing a pretty brutal way of life in a rural Bengal village. Each member of the family feels entirely fleshed out and understood. There's a light brought into the film from the children, a sense of melancholy in the elderly aunt, and a sense of depression from the mother, as well as a sense of desperation and drive from the father. It culminates as a full picture of life and what it means to survive. What does it take to survive, to be happy? Through each generation, you see different answers to this question, and it's really quite profound and tragic by the end. Knowing this is part of a trilogy, I am very curious to see how Ray will continue to develop this character, knowing his deep understanding of generational differences in this. But for now, I just can't believe this is a debut. It's one of those debuts that just pisses you off the more you think about it. Instant favorite for me. Incredible movie. And I watched Model Shop. This is Jacques Demy's only English language film, taking place in none other than Los Angeles, California in the late 60s. The film is very loosey-goosey, following a pretty aimless guy who feels disconnected from his relationship and aspirations. Anyone going into this expecting Umbrellas of Cherbourg in LA, just go watch La La Land. This is not that movie. Demy captures the backdrop of Los Angeles in a way that's pretty empty and quiet, almost as if it's in a transitionary period. I guess I can say this as an LA transplant, considering Demy was also just a tourist when making this, but I thought he just totally captured the essence of the city. It's one of those slow, wandery movies that moves at the same pace as its protagonist. You could even call it a stoner movie at the end of the day. It only really finds its purpose when it's too late, and that's what's so beautiful and tragic about this. Pretty dark watch for what I've expected from Demy, but definitely an essential from him. Then I watched The Swimming Pool. This is a good and fine way to kick off the summer, if nothing else. A sleek and incredibly sexy thriller that takes place in the south of France and stars some of the hottest people that have ever been in the movies. It's one of those that's just so nice to look at and not a lot else. If you liked Saltburn, you'll probably get a kick out of this. Then I watched Thelma, Joachim Trier's only thriller. I wondered how this would go down, coming from such a dramatic filmmaker, and it goes down nice. It does feel a bit forgettable, if I'm gonna be honest. It took me a second to remember that I actually watched this month. Of all the psychological thrillers I've seen from this era of filmmaking, this kind of just blends into the bunch. It feels like Trier wants to get closer to these characters like he does in all of his work, but is held back by the genre. Left me wanting a bit more, and a little forgettable, like I said, but still worth a watch for any Trier heads out there. Then I watched Killing Them Softly. 3 films deep, I think I understand Andrew Dominique's thing, and it's not my thing. He's one of the most cynical filmmakers working today, which I suppose we need. We need a guy like this, you know? And he's good at it. He doesn't compromise at any point. He really commits to this gritty, smoky, smelly tone, especially here. This is the most Dominique film I've seen. This thing is leathery and pissed off at the world, and it's hard to take your eyes off it. It's funny that for a film with that kind of grungy attitude, it's really just guys talking in rooms for like 90 minutes. There's the occasional violence, but there's way more talking about how they're gonna do it than actually doing it. Which for a film that acts as one big metaphor for American politics, maybe it hit the nail on the head with that one. Then I watched How to Train Your Dragon, the new one. It's not bad, because how could it be when it's that close to the original? But like, why? Why? Then I watched Something Wild. Why don't people talk about this more often? This is an early Jonathan Demme film about an unlikely romance between a sex worker and businessman that spirals out of control, and it's a total roller coaster. Just a vibrant portrait of America at the time. It strikes such a great balance between following a narrative and just wandering outside a gas station to see what's going on. It's also uniquely American in the differences between Jeff Daniels and Ray Liotta's characters in the film. 2 characters who undergo a similar situation in life and respond to it in polar opposite ways. Then I watched Materialists. Oh boy. Listen, I don't think this is as bad as many are making it out to be. In fact, I think the disappointingly sterile approach is actually intentional and interesting in theory, but I am on the same page in terms of feeling a little bored by this, at least while watching it. The movie is not fun. It's not exactly bursting at the seams with romance, an unusual trait for a rom-com to have, which is a problem. As much as we can sit here and call that an intentional choice, nobody likes that. How bleak is that? But I have to say, part of that has to do with how it's poking fun at this type of person, this rigid personality who could only be sculpted from years of experiencing romance through apps. This film understands this character, this very modern character, and the film is exploring the absurdity of trying to navigate romance in a world full of these people. I do think Song has a really visceral approach to making romance films that take place in the digital age. She does capture that distance and lack of intimacy, but when there is a spark, which there's only really one spark in this film, and it's this one, but unlike Past Lives, which feels like a constant tug at your heartstrings, Materialist spins its wheels in the mud a bit too much, where after a certain point, it just feels tedious. It feels like I'm supposed to be caring about a relationship that I couldn't give less of a shit about. And again, nobody wants to watch that. That's not what we want in a rom-com, and I think that's the problem at the heart of this. We don't want to be told how to feel. We just want to feel it. Then I watched The Trial. This is an Orson Welles film based on the Kafka novel, and it's one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. Just flat out. It's one giant nightmare from the first to last frame. It's committed to this. The camera is in places it shouldn't be. The production design is disorienting in the best way. Anthony Perkins is delivering a mesmerizing performance that brings some sense into this nonsensical world. I don't know how else to put it. It's a total trip. I go a little nutso over these kinds of movies with this kind of heightened surrealism. I cannot off the top of my head think of a film that has done it better than this. How frightening. Clears Citizen Kane all day, every day, honestly. Then I watched Born on the 4th of July, also a banger that not enough people are talking about. Possibly the best Tom Cruise performance out there for my money. I don't think I've ever seen the man look this distressed and unwell before. The film is kind of tongue-in-cheek with its patriotic style early on, which obviously flips on a dime when shit hits the fan after he goes to war. But the film, unlike a lot of anti-war films, has a very interesting flip in the third act, where it celebrates the art of using community and assembling a team of people, not unlike how our protagonist was taught through war, as a way of protesting and fighting for what's actually right, using that against the same people that put them in this situation. It has a cheesy 80s American flair to it, but takes that style, which was primarily used in films after a sort of patriotism, and turns it against the very thing those films aimed to romanticize. The War. Really clever and proudly American film that doesn't talk down on the audience the way certain films of the same flavor often come across as doing. Then I rewatched McCabe Mrs Miller. I caught a crusty 35mm print of this essential Altman flick in theaters, which was such a good time. His movies, above all else, just make me laugh. The mumbly delivery tickles me every single time, and I love how much of a doof Warren Beatty is in this. It's one of Altman's most impressive atmospheres. This thing is slow, smoky, cold, and wet, yet it's very inviting all the way through. From what I've seen, it's one of his most intimate films, and the closer you get, the sadder it is. Then I watched Elio. I liked it. It's very cute and it looks incredible. Ultimately, very harmless movie with an 80s space adventure vibe that makes it a great summer flick. Not mad at this. Leave it alone. Then I watched 28 Days Later. I am not the biggest fan of zombie movies, admittedly, but hard to deny how riveting this one is. This has a refreshing energy to it that zombie movies, at least before this, were severely lacking. It's a very intense watch with some incredibly inventive camera work throughout that maybe looks a little ugly at times, but is ultimately just very effective. Cillian Murphy, man. I could look at that guy all day. I'm really excited for 28 Years Later, and I'm sorry I couldn't squeeze that one in time for this video. Then I rewatched Mamma Mia. As mentioned on Letterboxd, this transcends the 5-star rating system. I am not going to give this a rating because it does not feel like a movie. And in that way, I also don't know how to talk about this as a movie. It's more of an experience, and it's a great one. One of the only movies I've ever seen where the movie itself is plastered. Then I watched The Ballad of Naryama God. I've been wanting to watch this one for a while. The film is about a Japanese village where when elders turn 70, they must go up to a mountain to die. The film follows a healthy old woman looking to tie up loose ends and make sure her 3 sons are married before she turns 70. And I thought the premise sounded super fun and unique, but the film is really quite well, it's a downer. It's a very unenjoyable watch for how much sex is in it. I wouldn't call this a sexy movie. The characters in here are just animalistic. The film is very intentional about this depiction, consistently cutting back to animals banging it out as humans are doing the same. Sex, death, food, housing, it's all treated as a means of survival. It's really quite barbaric. Coupled with the sense of strict ritualism underneath the whole thing, it paints the world as a terrifying place. It's an ugly depiction of reaching the end of one's life, but a fascinating one. You could even call it a little beautiful in all of its ugliness. Then I watched Broadcast News. Holy hell, this was way better than I thought it would be. I was expecting something in line with Network, which I also really like, but this thing is funny as fuck. Incredible Holly Hunter performance. It's worth a watch for that alone. Phenomenal screenplay, so human in a way where you don't actually see where it's going at any point because people really are that messy. It reminds me of Succession and how it blends working your way up the corporate ladder with personal relationships, how the two conflict with each other. It explores that stuff very cleverly and is just a really fun ride. Like I said on Letterboxd before deleting it, very Romare at times. But see, I can't say it out loud. Then I finished this month with F1. As expected, this is the big and loud summer blockbuster I was craving. Some incredibly impressive cinematography all over this, but more notably, Brad Pitt is back doing some dramatic work in this. Feels like a very personal film to him. Feels like he really gave a shit here. And that comes across to the viewer. It's a really good time at the movies, even if it's a solid 45 minutes longer than it should be. And hey, that's what I watched this month. What'd you watch, man? Let me know. Go watch these films and form your own opinion. And if you're looking for something to watch next month, you should check out this week's sponsor, Mubi. Mubi is a curated streaming service, a place to watch beautiful, interesting, and incredible cinema. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected by its team of curators. Discover the best of cinema at your fingertips, streaming anytime, anywhere. Contrary to popular belief, watching movies is hard. Not the actual act of watching movies, but finding the right movie to watch. And what I love about Mubi is how intentionally curated it is. It's not just a giant, overwhelming place where you don't know what to watch. Everything is on there for a reason. It's because someone thought it was worth your time. And no matter what you end up picking, it's going to be interesting. And if you're looking to have a David Lynch summer, boy, do I have news for you. The 1990 Twin Peaks and 2017 Twin Peaks, a limited event series, are all streaming now on Mubi. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Karsten. That's mubi.com/Karsten for a whole month of amazing cinema for free.